You ever notice how some people literally zone out the second someone mentions last night's game? Like their eyes glaze over, they check their phone, suddenly remember they need to be somewhere else? Meanwhile, the rest of the room is having a full-blown debate about a referee call from the third quarter, and you're standing there thinking, am I broken? Why do I feel absolutely nothing about this? Or maybe you're on the other side, watching your friends scroll through their phone during the Super Bowl, wondering how anyone could be so disconnected from something millions of people care about. Here's the thing. There's actually fascinating psychology behind why some people just don't care about sports. And no, it's not because they're boring or pretentious or trying to be different. It goes way deeper than that.
Let's start with the person who just never got into it. You know them. They grew up in a house where sports weren't really a thing. No Sunday football rituals, no family debates about draft picks, no memories of dad teaching them to throw a baseball in the backyard. For them, sports are like a language everyone else learned as kids, and now they're adults standing in a conversation they can't quite follow. It's not that they're actively opposed to it, they just never developed the neural pathways for it. See, neuroscience tells us that the things we're exposed to repeatedly during childhood literally shape how our brains process information. If you grew up hearing the roar of a crowd and feeling the collective energy of a close game, your brain associates sports with excitement, belonging, community. But if you didn't, that emotional connection just isn't there. It's like asking someone who never learned to swim why they don't love being in the water. They're not afraid of it necessarily, they just never learned to feel at home in it.
Then there's the person who intellectually rejects sports. They'll tell you it's trivial, a distraction from real issues. Why are people so obsessed with watching strangers throw a ball around when the world is literally on fire? And look, they're not entirely wrong to question it. But here's what's really happening psychologically. These are often people with high levels of conscientiousness and a strong need for meaning in everything they do. They view time as a precious resource, and dedicating hours to something that doesn't produce tangible results feels wasteful to them. Sports, to them, represent pure entertainment, and entertainment without educational or productive value feels frivolous. But here's the twist. They might spend 3 hours binge-watching a prestige drama or reading a fantasy novel and not see the contradiction, because those things feel culturally elevated to them. The psychology here isn't really about sports at all. It's about how we justify our leisure choices to ourselves. We all have arbitrary lines we draw between worthwhile and wasteful entertainment, and sports just happen to fall on the wrong side of their line.
Another type, the person who craves individuality. They don't care about sports specifically because it feels like mass conformity. Think about it. Sports fandom is inherently tribal. You wear the same colors as thousands of other people, you chant the same chants, you experience collective joy and collective disappointment. For someone whose identity is built around being unique, different, not following the crowd, that's their nightmare. These are often people who score high in openness to experience and low in conformity. They're drawn to niche hobbies, underground music, obscure films. They want to discover things, not join things. In sports, with its massive cultural footprint and shared rituals, feels the opposite of discovery. It feels like something you're supposed to care about, and that supposed to is precisely what makes them resist it. There's a psychological principle called Reactance Theory that explains this perfectly. When people feel their freedom is being threatened, they push back harder in the opposite direction. So the more sports dominates the cultural conversation, the more some people dig in their heels and refuse to engage.
But here's where it gets really interesting. There's a type of person who doesn't care about sports because they're wired for different kinds of competition. They're not anti-competition. They just need it to be more personal, more directly tied to their own skills and growth. These are your chess players, your gamers, your debate team champions. They need to feel like they're the ones making the moves, not watching someone else make them. Psychologically, this comes down to locus of control. Some people have an internal locus of control. They need to feel like they're the agent of their own success or failure. Watching sports means investing emotionally in outcomes they have zero control over, and that feels unsatisfying to them. They'd rather spend that energy on something where their effort directly correlates to results. And you know what? That's a completely valid way to be wired.
And then there's the person who's just sensory overwhelmed by sports culture. The noise, the crowds, the intensity, the aggressive passion. They walk into a sports bar during a playoff game and feel their nervous system spike. These are often people with high sensitivity or introverted tendencies who process stimulation differently. It's not the game itself that bothers them, it's the entire ecosystem around it. The yelling, the unpredictability, the expectation to perform enthusiasm. They'd maybe enjoy watching a game quietly at home, but the social performance of sports fandom feels exhausting. And our culture doesn't really make space for that middle ground. You're either a fan or you're not. There's not much room for, I enjoy this casually but don't want to make it my whole personality.
So which type are you? Or maybe you're a combination. Maybe you recognize yourself in that person who never got the early exposure, but kind of wishes they understood what everyone's so excited about. Or maybe you're the one who's been quietly judging sports fans while binge-watching reality TV. Here's the real insight, though. Not caring about sports doesn't make you smarter, more enlightened, or more interesting. And caring deeply about sports doesn't make you shallow or simple. We're all just finding different ways to experience joy, community, and meaning. The psychology behind what we care about says way more about how we're wired than it does about the inherent value of the thing itself. So maybe cut yourself some slack, and maybe cut that friend who talks about football stats for 20 minutes some slack too. We're all just trying to find our thing.